Hello YouTube, and welcome to my video where today we're talking all about filmmaking gear. This is of course just my opinion on the gear that I use, so I'll be letting you know if you should pick up any of this gear for yourself. But I'll also be letting you know if it's not essential, so you don't need to worry about adding it to your kit. This video is also in no way in depth. I'll be going in depth on a couple items in my kit, but this is just a really quick overview on everything that I use. So first off, let's start with cameras. I shoot on the Sony A7S, which is shooting this video right now. It's been absolutely perfect for video. Honestly, it's the best camera in its price range compared to something like the 5D. I've got the 5D Mark III for photos, and I know the 5D Mark IV is supposed to be really good for video as well, but honestly, nothing beats the Sony's image. But of course, no camera in this price range is without fault. Without a doubt, the battery life, it just chews through batteries so quickly. You need to have so many to keep this camera running all day. And also, since this camera is mirrorless, there's no mirror in front of the sensor to protect it, like with the 5D. So you really need to keep the sensor clean and check your image really often, because I've been caught up on a couple shoots where there's sensor dust all over the image and you have to go away and clean it or clean it up in post, which for video is pretty much impossible. Second of all, I've got a Smallrig camera cage. I definitely recommend putting one of these on your camera, especially if you're shooting with a smaller camera like the Sony. There's just so many mounting options. Thirdly, I've got the SmallHD focus monitor. If you actually want to see what you're doing while you're filming on a camera of this size, I definitely recommend picking one of these up. There are a lot of cheaper monitors out there, but the SmallHD is unmatched for, the battery life and for the features that it has. And it's a fantastic bright monitor. If you're shooting outside, wherever you're shooting, it's awesome. Definitely recommend. And lastly, camera lenses. My primary lens that I use for video is the Canon 24-70 f2.8. This lens will do pretty much everything you need. If you're gonna be picking up this lens, you will not be disappointed. It's such a fantastic lens, and it honestly beats having primes for video. If you're gonna be changing lenses so often for primes, they have a very specific look and they look fantastic, but if you're gonna be doing everything, you really need a 24-70. Second, we've got the Canon 17-40. This lens is fantastic if you're going to be using the camera on a Zhiyun Crane because it's so light, and also you can get some really wide angles of shots. It's a very specific lens if you're going to be using it for video. I wouldn't tend to shoot people with this just because of the sort of weird wide angle focal length that you get out of this. Would I recommend it? Yes. Do you need it? No. So third, we've got the Tamron 70-200. This lens is amazing if you're going to be shooting interviews or anything from really far back, like weddings. Do you need one? No, you can always sort of move the camera closer, but if there's a scenario where you really can't move the camera closer to the subject, having 200mm is amazing. And last of all, we've got the Sigma 50mm 1.4. This is an amazing prime lens, primarily for photography, but I use it for video when you want a really sort of blurry depth of field in the background. It can make your videos pop and look really fantastic. Would I recommend it? Most definitely. It's a really sharp lens, but do you need it? If you've got a 24-70 that can zoom into 50mm, obviously you don't need it. But would I recommend it? Definitely. So now let's move on to audio. I've got 3 audio items I'd like to talk about today, and I only really recommend 2 of them. Those being the Sennheiser wireless lav system and the Zoom H5. If you have the opportunity to put your mic on your subject, it sounds so much better. I also have a Rode Videomic Pro that I put on the camera as a backup, but most of the time it is just a backup because this thing just sounds so amazing. So I would recommend getting these 2 items and running them together. You don't really need the Zoom H5, it is a bit overkill for this system, but if you're going to be plugging lots of audio sources in, like if you're shooting an event or a wedding, this thing's the way to go. So now let's move on to stabilizing your camera. First of all, I use the Zhiyun Crane V1. I don't have the V2 because it wasn't out when I got it, but this thing's just amazing. I'm sure you've seen plenty of footage from this already. This makes some really, really stable footage, and you can even just sort of chuck the camera on this and put it down somewhere and use it as a tripod. Is it essential? No. Would I recommend it? Yes, but go with the version 2, which comes with the free follow focus now. And one of the most important items for stabilization is a tripod. I've got the Manfrotto tripod. This thing is fantastic for photos and videos. And I've also got a Manfrotto monopod. This is also amazing, and it's a bit more quick to set up and take your camera off. Is the monopod essential? No. Would I recommend it? I would say just go with the tripod unless you really need that short amount of time that it's going to take to set the tripod up. If that's the case, I would say get both. but you definitely need a tripod in your kit. Next, moving on to lighting, I've got one video light that I use for just about everything at the moment, and that is the Aputure A7SII. This is fantastic. It puts out so much light, and I'm actually using that to light this video now. The batteries last for ages, and it puts out a really, really clean light source. Is it essential to shoot with a light? Now that I have actually shot with a lighting setup, I would say yes, you really do need something like this. Would I recommend this light specifically? Most definitely. Aputure lights are just amazing. Second, we've got the Yongnuo Light wand, which I've actually got as a hair light here. This thing is a really sort of weird addition to your kit. It's a very specific sort of shape. I use this for light painting cars, but I also use it as sort of like a hair light, a secondary sort of light. This has got LEDs in it as well, so you can get some really cool effects. But the light output of it isn't fantastic. You need to be in a really dark room to actually see what it's putting out. And also the battery life is not fantastic. You're gonna need to upgrade the battery if you wanna keep this thing running. Is it essential? No. Would I recommend it? Yes, if you're on a tight budget and you want those sort of cool lighting effects, but there are plenty of other lights out there that do just as good a job. Next up, we've got light stands. I have the Manfrotto heavy duty light stand, and it makes a world of difference having your light secure. Would I recommend having a heavy duty light stand? Definitely, no matter what light you have. Is it essential? You can get away with the eBay brand ones, but they will fall over. I've had it happen on a couple jobs and it is very embarrassing. Next up, we've got diffusion. I've got this sort of circular light diffusion. Would I recommend diffusing a light? Most definitely. Is it essential? I would say most definitely as well. Having soft light makes a world of difference rather than just shooting a light on someone. And the last item we have here is the DJI Phantom 4 Pro. This thing is just fantastic. If you're going to be buying a drone, definitely buy a DJI. I've had a couple sort of off-brand ones and they just don't work nearly as well. I can be really confident flying this wherever. But for filmmaking, is it essential? No. A lot of people do have drones now and you can pick them up really cheap now. But is it essential for your work? Not necessarily. But would I recommend this one? Most definitely. And last but not least, we have all of the extra items that make a world of difference when you're filming video. First off is batteries. You're going to need so many batteries if you're shooting Sony, especially if you're shooting 4K. The Sony doesn't really last very long at all on batteries, so you're going to need a lot of them for backup. Next up, we've got backup memory cards. If you're going to be shooting paid work, you need backup memory cards. There is nothing worse than being on a shoot and running out of space and then having to transfer it there. Definitely recommend this. Another recommendation if you're going to be shooting audio in your videos is to get just a pair of headphones. It doesn't matter what. You need to plug them into your camera and monitor your audio. You can also use the audio levels in the camera, but you can't really trust that for audio quality. You need to monitor this on the day and be listening to audio, so get a pair of headphones. Also on the topic of audio, if you're going to be using a lav mic, definitely get some of these Rycote overcovers and also stickies to stick the mic onto your subject. This also eliminates some of the sort of scratchy, rattly noise that you get if your mic is under the clothes of your subject. Next, we've got a little backup LED light here. This is the Manfrotto one. Would I recommend getting this one? Look at the sort of light it's producing. It's flickering, it doesn't work. I don't know if it's the batteries in this, but it's absolutely seizure inducing. Get an Aputure one, but I would recommend having a little LED light as a backup so you can add some more sort of light to your subject in a pinch. And one of the most important things when shooting video, especially on a mirrorless camera, is to get a cleaning kit. This is essential and you need to clean your lens and your sensor before going to a shoot because there's nothing worse than stopping the lens down and seeing those little bits of dust on the sensor. It's the worst thing. So you need to clean your lens and your sensor before you go on every shoot. So that is going to be it for this video. Hopefully you've gained a little bit more of an in-depth look at the gear that I use to make my videos. If you want to check out Sam's gear, make sure to click here. Make sure you send this video to anyone else that is a filmmaker and let me know in the comments what gear you use to make your videos. I always love to check out what other people use and gain a bit more of an insight into the industry. So thanks for watching and see you next time.